What's up, Steeler Nation? If you're currently watching this, thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Nicastro at Mike Depp Sports 1. You're watching the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. You're watching us live on X right now. And I also want to thank you for just following along all draft season. We've had a lot of fun with you guys, brought on some awesome guests, from players, of course, to some excellent analysts. Yeah, and it all leads up to tonight. So, I see you. Just cut it then. All right, everybody. Welcome in to an episode of the Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy. We are live with you. And, want to first thank you. Take some time out for following us all draft off season here. We've had some great guests and players, of course, as well as some tremendous analysts breaking it all down leading up to tonight, where I think the first thing that I have to say is we could pretend, right, to read the tea leaves and give our mock drafts and, our full analysis of these players. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen tonight, and you can't be too proud to admit that. I don't want to sit here and think like I have any idea what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do. But what we can do, obviously, is take all the information that we've heard and try and layer it as much as possible to predict the outcome that, brought me to Broderick Jones a couple of years ago, brought me to Najee Harris, brought all of us to Najee Harris a handful of years ago. And then, a lot of us, Troy Fatanu last year as well. So I'm just going to talk for about 10 minutes here. Shout out my boy Jordan York. He's headed down at the Rivers Casino for a big draft event tonight. But I want to hit on a few things as we get closer to 8 o'clock here. So if you're watching this, feel free to shoot me a question in the chat. Every year, I have done my Steelers draft pick confidence rankings in the first round, okay? This is a combination of who I think they're interested in, as well as who I think will actually be available. So it's not just like a big board. It's not just my favorite top 5 players or most likely to be selected by them. It also factors in who I think will be available, as mentioned. So obviously, Shedeur Sanders, if he's available, is going to be higher than Cam Ward because he's not going to be there. And it's a pretty good transition, obviously, into what I have cooking up here. So it has changed a shit ton, as you can imagine. Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle out of Oregon, was number 1 for me, essentially all off season. I'll start with number 5 on this list, and it's quarterback Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. I do think that he's probably number 3 on the Steelers' big board behind Cam Ward and Shedeur, obviously. They brought him in. They had significant pre-draft interest, combine dinner. So they got to know him, obviously, right? He's a Bo Nix type, pretty good athlete, good deep ball, some questionable decision-making, really good legs. Has some, moxie. I know people like to use that term around here, but I think the Steelers also might be a little scared off by Kenny Pickett. And maybe Dart has a little more Pickett qualities than they'd like. But he is still 5th because that means I think he is still squarely in play. As is Kenneth Grant, who I have at number 4. He is the defensive tackle from Michigan. A couple of things here. Mike Tomlin scared me off a little bit at his Tuesday press conference when he threw out this notion that nose tackles just aren't as, much needed in today's day and age, which is true. There's only a few guys out there, I think of Vita Vea off the top of my head, who are dominant enough to, make an impact only playing 2 downs, right? Because generally you don't have your nose tackle or zero tech in there on 3rd down, assuming it's a passing situation. You want to get as many pass rushers as you can on the field. However, Kenneth Grant is not a classic Casey Hampton space-eating buffet, fool. He is very athletic for a 330-pound dude. He can get to the passer. I do think there are still questions on, is he going to be able to play 3 downs? I'm not sure. Was that a smokescreen from Mike Tomlin? Potentially. right? Maybe they're zoned in on Kenneth Grant, and he and Omar Khan sat back and said, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about the fact that nose tackles, we don't need them anymore. They are lost in today's day and age while they're zoning in on a nose tackle. That certainly would be a strategic move. Couldn't blame them there. All right, so Dart 5, Grant 4. My number 3, this is the wild card, whatever cliche you want to call it. And the guy is a wild card himself, and it's Jalen Milroe. And let me explain this one, okay? I think there is significant interest from the Steelers side in Jalen Milroe. I think they see him in the same light that they saw Justin Fields. They just wouldn't have to pay him $20 million to be on the roster, right? So Mike Tomlin has spoke so adamantly about the mobility at the quarterback position and how a guy like Lamar Jackson can change the dynamic of not just the game, but the league. Obviously, the MVP from 2 years ago, and we've seen what he's done to the Steelers, at least in the playoffs last year. Derrick Henry helped there, but Steelers have played well against him. Anyway, Jalen Milroe has that capability on the ground, obviously, with his legs. I've heard he might be the best athlete at quarterback that we have ever seen, better than Lamar because he's thicker, is a sturdier build. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, said if he went into this draft as a running back, that he would be like an early second-round pick, just a running back exclusively. So that shows you what kind of athlete he is. So I think the Steelers want a veteran quarterback, obviously. They said they're going to add 2 quarterbacks. It makes sense for a guy like Milroe to come in redshirt for a season, maybe use him in package plays like they did Justin Fields to a degree. They should have done it more. And, kind of lick their wounds a little bit there because I don't think they wanted Fields out of the building, but I also don't think they were willing to pay him $20 million. So you get a similar guy that you wanted, you get him on a rookie deal. If you trade back for him, a handful of picks, which I think would likely be the scenario if they did draft him, you still get a 5th-year option on him. I'll touch on him briefly once more. I think there are so many interesting tidbits. The first is his intermediate passing is terrible. There needs to be a lot of work done on that. We had a guest on the other day, brought up the fact that passes within 19 yards of the line of scrimmage over the past 2 seasons, Milroe has an even touchdown to interception ratio. That is high school level stuff. Right there, you're talking, check downs, 10-yard outs, throws in the flat to the tight end, 10-yard curls, even touchdown to interception ratio at Alabama, right? With excellent talent around you across the board. Now his deep ball is phenomenal. It's absolutely beautiful. He's got the Russell Wilson moon ball working out there, which is very strange. Usually it's the opposite with a lot of these guys. I love the comparison. It was an analogy. It was not a comparison to an NFL player or an athlete. It was Happy Gilmore because Jalen Milroe can hit the ball 500 yards off the tee, but he can't make a putt to save his life, which sounds familiar. It's kind of like my golf game, except I can't hit the ball off the tee anyway. But he's such an interesting prospect. If the Steelers leave this draft with Jalen Milroe, I will not be surprised one bit. So neither should you. And that's why I'm telling you right now. I have a weird gut feeling, even though he's only number 3 on my confidence board here. Number 2 is Derek Harmon, the aforementioned Oregon defensive tackle, led the nation in quarterback pressures last year. It didn't result in tremendous production, which I thought was a little strange. I think he only had 3.5 sacks. But he gets to the quarterback, and, he is an athletic 3-tech. He is a 3-down player. He is somebody who can move along the defensive line, right, and push Isaiah Loudermilk back to kind of just a rotational depth piece. It is the only position in my eyes on the Steelers outside of quarterback, which I expect them to fill with Aaron Rodgers, that doesn't have a clear starter. Every other position penciled in. Running back can be Jalen Warren. You got your receivers, pick and stays on the team. Obviously, your line is full. Your corners, you brought in Slay. Linebackers, obviously, are set. But you have 2 guys on the D-line, Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. You need a 3rd. So Derek Harmon is 2nd on my list, and it's a damn coin flip for me. And the national media, I'm riding their coattails right now. I am, because once again, who knows? Nobody knows. I don't know if the Steelers know who's going to be available or who they're going to take until it actually happens. But I am going to say, for as of now, it could change in 38 minutes. Try not to be that guy, that they will take Shedeur Sanders with the 21st pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So I will. I'll start over so I can make a clean clip here if I do look good and they take him. Here's why the Steelers will take Shedeur Sanders with the 21st overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Number one, I don't think Mike Tomlin is afraid to coach Deion Sanders' kid. I think that he is someone that can absolutely take on the quote-unquote burden of having a Hall of Fame player looking over your shoulder at all times, because you are the one who has to develop his son and help make him a successful NFL player, which translates into making sure, obviously, he has a clean reputation on the field. I'm talking specifically. And I trust off the field, he is a good kid as well. He's a leader. So I think, obviously, this is an on-the-field specific type comment. Number two, I don't think the Steelers thought he would last to this point. It's why they did late homework on him, which felt like, it was like, 2 weeks ago they brought him into the facility for a visit. I think that was simply because they didn't think there was any chance of him dropping to them at 21, or they would have showed much more pre-draft interest. But the rumors start to come out from the national insiders that he didn't interview well, that teams see him as maybe a second-round pick, that a team like the Saints has Jackson Dart ranked ahead of him. And I think Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin sat back and said, what in the wide world of sports is going on? Let's look into this kid, and if he falls to us, let's think long and hard about it. And when you think long and hard about it, the fact that the Steelers don't have a quarterback is at the forefront. That's why it's tough for me to pencil in a defensive lineman. If you have a first-round grade on a quarterback and your only quarterback is Mason Rudolph, no offense, Skylar Thompson, you should probably take that guy over the defensive lineman. In regard to, is he worthy of that pick? That's a different debate. I personally like his game a lot. He is one of the more accurate college passers I've ever seen in my life. He does have exceptional maneuverability in the pocket. This isn't a guy who's going to be seeing ghosts. He's back there. He'll take hits. He'll absorb the contact. He'll get right back up the next play and, put his head down and keep on steamrolling like a Buffalo, man. Jesus, like his alma mater. Just had his jersey retired. I know it's a lot of you laughing at that, but so those are my three, make it four reasons. One, I do think Tomlin likes him. I believe the national insiders like Adam Schefter said it was a good interview. I believe it was a good interview. Two, Steelers need a freaking quarterback. And three, I think this developed really late in the process, and they kind of were stunned by the fact that he might be available. And I don't think that's worn off just yet. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a chance he doesn't make it to their spot in the first place. That's when that, Grant, Milroe, Dart, even looking down the board, Trey Henderson from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka, those two skill players, maybe those factor in. A couple defensive guys, Nick Emanwari, freak athlete from South Carolina. And then you also have Jahdae Barron, corner from Texas. Those two are just phenomenal football players. They could factor into the mix as well. UNC running back Omarion Hampton is another guy that came in for the draft, pre-draft visit, who has a lot of talent. But that is essentially where I fall with my confidence rankings leading into tonight, and what will kick off here in about 45 minutes or so. I want to throw a third scenario out there, and it doesn't involve trading up. I don't think they're going to trade up. They don't have enough equity. They gave up that second-round pick for DK Metcalf, of course, and they don't pick until later in the third. So there's a long gap. But I think an interesting scenario is trading out of the first round entirely and continuing to build ammo for the 2026 draft. Now, I have never taken the Steelers organization to not be laser focused and honed in on what is on the table and the plate right in front of them. But common knowledge to the average fan, to me, to everybody watching, knows the next crop of quarterbacks in 2026 are much better than this one. Much better. Drew Aller, Penn State, Nussmeier, LSU, potentially Arch Manning. You have Lenore Sellers over at South Carolina, absolute beast. I'm sure I'm missing guys, but guess where that draft is as well? You know where it's at. It's in Steel City. We'll see you in there. If you trade up back entirely out of the first round, still likely a chance you can pick up, have a late second there. It's a very deep class, a lot of good players from like the 40 to 100 range. There's so many guys in that mix, but they're going to have a crap ton of compensatory picks next year anyways, because of the likes of Russell Wilson, potentially Justin Fields. Not sure what happens there in terms of his playing time and how that can result in another pick. I'm missing somebody off the top of my head. Is it Ogunjobi? Maybe Ogunjobi resulted in another one. Maybe they just punt on this draft in the first round and say, hey, listen, we are good with Aaron Rodgers coming to town. We're still going to get, some depth in the middle rounds, maybe a, Will Howard type quarterback who I've heard that they love. A running back, a Bayshal Tootin or a Jaden Blue, one of those guys to add some speed to the backfield. And, of course, you can still get a defensive lineman in that mix, which I think was so interesting that for their pre-draft visits, most of the defensive linemen they brought in outside of Derek Carmen, who I already mentioned, are projected by the Nostradamuses out there, not me, but people who make a good living off of doing this, in that second to third to fourth round range. Joshua Farmer, Florida State, 3-tech. Elijah Roberts, SMU, 3-tech, maybe around the fourth round. One of my favorite, JJ Pegus out of Ole Miss, who played some fullback as well. Maybe a bit more of a 0-tech nose, but a guy that they also brought in for a visit. There are a few more I'm missing, but those players are all projecting that 40 to 60 round mix, while the quarterbacks they visited with primarily, Dart, Shedeur, those two spent a lot of time with those guys. Milrow, is the other one, obviously projected to go much higher. Okay, so what last thing I want to talk about are, I might as well just throw it out there now that you're watching. I'll go through a handful of rounds with you and name some potential Steelers that you will see their names on the roster on Monday. So let me just throw some names out there. I'm either going to make myself look really good or terrible. I love when we can play back these clips and I look good, because usually it's the opposite. So, all right, here are a handful of names that could be Pittsburgh Steelers by Monday. Quarterback Will Howard, Ohio State. The one big piece of information I have received from a trustworthy source is that the Steelers love Will Howard. Now, I don't know how that factors into the whole Shedeur Sanders thing, but if they go Harmon in the first round, that third round pick, if Will Howard is there, quarterback, national champion from Ohio State, that's probably going to be Will Howard. That is the information I received that I trust. And it's literally pretty much the only concrete information that I've received outside of reading the tea leaves. So look for him. I'll throw out 3 running backs. DJ Giddens, Kansas State, Bayshal Tootin, Virginia Tech, Jaden Blue, Texas. All guys who came in for pre-draft visits. So I'm not going on a limb too much there, but I think they want to add speed to their backfield, and those guys are very fast. RJ Harvey is the 4th one out of UCF. Love him. And then I'll go Savion Williams, wide receiver, TCU, who's got some Cordell Patterson to him. Also came in for a pre-draft workout. Torrey Horton, the receiver from Colorado State. He did not come in, so he's kind of a curveball I'm throwing out there. But ultra productive when healthy, was banged up last year, so he's a guy to watch for as well. And then I'll end with Carson Bruner, the linebacker, of course, from Washington, who has Steelers bloodlines. Mark Bruner, everybody remembers him. I was a young pup when he was playing, but I think big number 87 out there doing some yeoman's work. His son Carson Bruner would be an interesting depth piece at linebacker if guys like Cole Holcomb aren't healthy at the start of the season. But all right, man, we are what? We're like 35 minutes there. I just ranted and raved for 35 minutes. I need to get a cold beer. I got some pizza downstairs, some potato chips. Hit me up at Mic'd Up Sports 1 on the X. I'll be tweeting my fingers off all night. I'm excited, man. I don't know what tonight brings. It seemed like a pretty chalky draft for a long time here. I'm already reading that the Browns potentially might move out of the number 2 spot. And the Jaguars could potentially be moving up, and I'd imagine that would be for Travis Hunter, which I guess Browns would be Browning there, because I don't understand why they would give up the opportunity to pass up Travis Hunter. My guess is they would potentially bump back to 4 and take a quarterback if that were to be the case. So interesting. We'll see what happens there. The other big piece of this weekend, and the last piece that I'll mention, is George Pickens. I think we're delusional if we think he's going to have a second contract with the Steelers. With that said, it doesn't mean they're going to trade him, because they very well want to go for it next year if they sign Aaron Rodgers, and George Pickens being on the team is going to be a better receiver than any guy they would get in the second or third round. However, I won't be surprised one bit if he's traded, because they can get a receiver, like I said, in the third round on a rookie deal for 4 years, so they don't have to pay, instead of George Pickens for 1 year and then let him walk. So keep that in mind as well. All right, I'm going overtime. I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Shane, and enjoy the draft. We'll chat soon. We'll be back tomorrow or Saturday.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.